So the journey for that oxygen into your body to get to those cells starts at the outside and coming in. And I'd like to introduce you to an ex-friend of mine, because this is a real human body. It's been pickled and it's been sawn in half so that you can see what's inside. In other lectures we'll be using this again. So here is the air. It starts at this, which is your nose and your mouth, and it gets drawn in to the air pipes at the top end. And you might think of your nose and mouth and these upper air pipes as nothing more than that, just simple pipes. But they're actually very sophisticated, and they do a number of different things. The first thing they do is they filter the air. You've got hairs in your nose that trap soot and pollen and pollution and nasty particles and stop them getting to your lungs in the first place. And furthermore, all of these airways here are lined with mucus, or as we doctors call it, snot. And that snot traps particles as well, and it's driven back up here by tiny little propeller hairs called cilia. Those airways, though, also do other things. For Sundeep, when he's at high altitude on the summit of Everest, the air's very, very cold, and it would literally freeze his lungs. So these airways warm the air. And the air that Sundeep breathes as well is also very, very dry. It would desiccate his lungs. They would crack and bleed. So the airways moisturize them too. So the air gets drawn in, comes down this airway pipe here. You can all feel it on yourselves. Reaches your voice box here. Carries on down. And if you feel down the breastbone, you'll feel a little notch just there, a little bend. And it's at that point this airway branches into two, one to your right lung and one to your left lung. And from there, it divides again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, 23 times, until you end up with something as beautiful as this. And this is a rubber cast of the airways of someone's lung. And you can see these fine, 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 tiny tubes of which your lungs are composed, these tiny airways, which end in small balloons, tiny little air sacs. And you have 300 million of those in each lung. And it's through those that the oxygen gets into your bloodstream. Now, how then are we going to get the oxygen and the air from here down into your lungs? Well, I think Andy has brought us something. What have you got there, Andy?
Plate of ribs for you, sir.
Ah, fantastic. Would you like one to take away with you?
Certainly.
Like these. Who else would like a spare rib? Anyone eat freshly cooked? Go on then, help yourselves. Right, shall I give you those? You can be the waitress of the evening, and you can pass them around. While they're eating those and getting their fingers all rather mucky, get your fingers out here and put them between your own ribs. And if you press, you'll find, fortunately, that your fingers don't go into the middle of your chest. And what's stopping them is the meat on those spare ribs. And that meat is breathing muscle, and you can feel it working. If you put your fingers like this again, now all together, very slowly breathe in, you can feel those rib muscles pulling the ribs up and out, making the rib cage bigger to draw air in from above. Now, if you put your hands just below your ribs down here, okay, all hands there, and now just give a gentle sniff. Yeah, who's doing that? Right, you're doing it rather well there. Which way is your tummy moving when you sniff? Yours is moving in, is it? Anyone's moving out? Right, okay, you're outvoted, because out's the way. And the reason that the tummy normally moves out when you sniff is that your diaphragm, which is a flat sheet of muscle here, contracts and pushes your tummy contents down. All of this expands the volume of your chest to draw air in. Now, we've got a really sophisticated, you're getting the hang of this now, all institution lectures, this very sophisticated computer model here of a human chest. So who's going to help me with this? I think your hand went up first, young man. Come on down. Ah, okay. So, what's your name?
Ollie.
Ollie. Right, you can come and stand over there if you wouldn't mind. We obviously can't put real ribs on and a diaphragm. It would be far too sophisticated. But essentially, your chest is working as a pair of bellows. So, if I anchor this down here and you pull that handle out that way, what ought to happen is we expand the volume and the lungs inflate. And if you press down that way, they should deflate. Right. Now, the first adaptation that Sundeep makes to being able to summit Mount Everest is to try to get more oxygen in. Sundeep will take a breath of 1.5 litres, and he'll do that every second. So off you go. Let's see how much work that is. Come on. Harder work. Come on. Almost there. Thanks very much. And you can see it's enormously hard work, but it's the only way Sundeep can get enough oxygen into his lungs to move down to get to the cells. Now, are you squeamish? Excellent. Because I'm going to get you to put some gloves on. There you are. Can you put that one on there? Oh, they can see what's coming. Splendid. Right, come on over here, because what I have here is a real pair of lungs. They're not human, they're pig lungs, you'll be glad to hear. I've not been out slaughtering anyone just for the Royal Institution lectures. And we've taken the ribs away, so we haven't got the natural bellows that draws the air in and out. So what we've had to do is put these lungs on a life support machine, which I'll switch on now, so that the lungs can do a bit of breathing. So let's see if that's going to work. Here we go. It's getting up to speed. Right. He's looking worried. Now that's what your lungs are doing right now, this sort of movement, and they're working on quite low pressure. And what I'd like you to do, without stabbing and putting your finger through, is give that a push for me when it's inflated. What does it feel like? Squidgy. Is it hard or is it soft?
Well, hard, but soft and...
Yeah, it's got some hard skin on it, soft inside. Well, thank you very much. Let's get your glove off there and let you get back to your seat. Ah, well done, you. Ah, for the rest of them. Now, the reason those lungs feel so soft and light and squidgy is that because they are largely composed of air. If you remember, we talked about those air sacs earlier on, 300 million in each lung. It makes it a little bit like this sort of mousse, although probably slightly less tasty, I would imagine. Largely composed of small air bubbles, and it's those air sacs through which the oxygen travels to get to your blood. Oh. Now, here we are. This is an electron microscope here of the alveoli, those air sacs. They don't show up terribly well, but here they are. Here's one, here's another, and they've got incredibly thin walls. These walls are only 7 millionths of a millimetre thick, 7 millionths of a millimetre. And that takes you to here, to the blood vessel wall, and the blood vessel wall is only 2,000ths of a millimetre thick, right the way across, including that. That's the 50th of the width of one of my hairs, and that's all that separates the air you breathe from the insides of your body. A 50th of the thickness of one hair. So the oxygen's able to rocket across here, diffuse very easily into this, which is the blood, and that's where it gets picked up to be delivered to your cells. Now,